Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Maller Grotner Plummer Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Maller Grotner Plummer Attorneys, understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis, on the web at lawngp.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. Smithville, fiber internet, security solutions, and voice in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Bunger and Robertson, attorneys at law since 1949, utilizing experience, knowledge, and resources to help individuals and families recover in personal injury matters. Information at lawbr.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk. The city is forcing Pendragon Properties to sell all their properties. But with the high cost of housing in Bloomington, tenants are worried about what's next for them.
It's not great not knowing what's going to happen. I've lived here for 10 years, so it feels like home.
The sale is part of a settlement agreement between the city and Pendragon Properties. It's been 10 years since an HIV outbreak put Scott County on the map. A needle exchange program helped stem the outbreak, but it's no longer being funded.
Anything that they need that is not a syringe. We are not allowed to give out syringes in Scott County anymore.
Local groups have stepped up to fill the void left by the end of the program. And the former director of student media at IU's media school is suing the university over his firing. We'll have these stories and more right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. Former Director of Student Media Jim Rodenbush is suing Indiana University for wrongful termination. As Ethan Sandwise reports, his lawyer argues the university fired him 2 weeks ago for not pulling stories it didn't like.
The media school fired Rodenbush the day after he refused to pull news from a scheduled special homecoming edition of the Indiana Daily Student. That afternoon, IU announced it would stop printing the paper entirely. Rodenbush says in his complaint that the university violated his First Amendment speech rights and 14th Amendment due process rights by firing him without an opportunity to be heard. Attorney John Little is seeking compensation for his client as well as injunctive relief, asking that the university rehire Rodenbush and clear his disciplinary record. But he doesn't think that'll happen.
Maybe they lose and they pay Jim money. That could happen, maybe. But at the end of the day, IU is not giving him his job back.
IU has not commented on firing Rodenbush, saying it won't comment on personnel matters. But his termination letter refers to a lack of leadership and ability to work in alignment with the university's direction for the student media plan.
We're joined now by Ethan for more on this story. So last evening, IU Bloomington Chancellor David Reingold told the IDS it could resume activities. Now, you spoke with the IDS editors, I believe, earlier. What did they say?
That's right. So they were not expecting this to happen. I don't think anyone really was. So they were obviously pretty excited. They were glad that they could print again, but they were also cautious. They said that the media school and their supporters need to hold the university to account to make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen again.
And you also spoke to a lawyer from the Student Press Law Center this morning about this.
That's right. He kind of echoed what the student says. I know they've been working together on this for a while. He wants to see students be more involved and have more of those assurances in how finances are handled. Here's what he said.
We need some sort of an oversight of a group of individuals, including our students, to be able to make those calls in governance ourselves, but also to be able to have more of a say in those finances.
And a lot of the media school faculty sent letters, an open letter to students. What did that say?
Right. So there were more than 40 faculty who signed this letter. That's not everybody in the media school, but it's a lot of faculty. They were saying they felt betrayed, that they didn't hear about this decision to cut print ahead of time. And they called out the media school administration and said they want them to do better, essentially.
Looks like the controversies around the media schools hitting them in the wallet, too.
That's right. Indianapolis Star came out with a story recently that showed that some alumni were canceling their planned gifts, more than $1 million in planned gifts to the university. Anecdotally, I've talked to some folks who give it a much smaller amount who say they might also withdraw their contributions.
Thanks so much for your reporting on this. Appreciate it. City housing officials say it's not their job to control the housing market in Bloomington, but the city does have a responsibility to step in when rentals become unsafe, which it did this past summer publicly on a couple occasions. As Ben Taboutier reports, the city settled legal disputes with one of these landlords recently, and now residents are grappling with how that will affect their housing.
Several months ago, as many as 10 men were living in a house at the end of East Chris Lane in Bloomington that was serving as a halfway house. But it sits vacant now because of rental code violations, as are some other homes owned by Pendragon Property on the cul-de-sac. Jeremy Nottingham lives several doors down in a house owned by Pendragon, where he's rented for about 10 years. The house has city code violations, though he and his partner are allowed to stay.
One of the biggest things is this summer the air conditioning has gone out and is still out. So it's been a few months on that.
His partner, Denise Travers, moved in a few years ago. The city of Bloomington has visited their house multiple times this year for code inspections.
The fire alarms, it took several visits for them to get them brought current and then in sync with each other.
The city of Bloomington settled a legal dispute with Nottingham and Travers's landlord, Pendragon Properties, this fall. After years of non-compliance with rental code, Pendragon's owner, Jeff Jones, agreed to sell his Bloomington properties in the next 3 years. Pendragon is required to sell a handful of properties faster, within 1 or 2 years. Those properties, including where Travers and Nottingham live, have severe problems.
The city inspectors came and said that we needed to replace a bunch of shingles.
Travers and Nottingham have considered buying a home to escape these issues, but they can't afford it. As a 2-person household with one on disability, Travers and Nottingham fall within a demographic that the city says lacks housing options. The mayor held a town hall this month on affordability gaps in the housing market.
The demand for our housing has outpaced our growth of housing development.
And the city hired a housing consultant to evaluate its housing needs to help with development downtown.
The average household size is going down steadily every year, which means that we need more total units to house the same number of people.
Hand's director says the housing market is too complicated to speak to any one landlord's impact, and it's not her department's job to control these factors. But Hand does enforce building code violations known as Title 16.
So one of the things that the rental program does is prevents a concentration of poverty within Bloomington. We are trying to enforce Title 16 to make sure that we're protecting the tenants that are living in these properties. How that impacts the market, I can't make that direct correlation.
Bloomington's settlement with Pendragon says it must sell its properties to a disinterested third party, but it can't control who that is. Most of its properties are in Perry Township. Its trustee predicts whoever buys them will invest into the properties and increase rents.
It doesn't seem like things are priced on what something is worth to build. It's worth what the market will bear. And we have such an artificially inflated rent value.
His office provides rental assistance and acts as a landlord for 12 senior housing apartments. He says medium-sized landlords are more likely to let their product deteriorate than small or large-scale operations.
They're trying to pull a profit out, maybe before it's time to pull a profit out, but they've invested everything they have and they feel like they need to keep a good lifestyle going, so they will start cutting corners.
According to a GIS search, Pendragon owns more than 40 properties in Bloomington, including a couple apartment buildings, totaling more than $17 million in property value. Combs says with well over $1 billion of assessed property value in Perry alone, Pendragon is a small portion of the Bloomington market. But Stephen Finnerty, who bought his home on East Chris Lane 15 years ago, says Pendragon's management and upkeep have a real impact on him. Of 21 homes on his street, 8 are owned by Pendragon.
I can't imagine anybody could drive down the street and not notice that you have half the houses that are really well maintained, the other half aren't. And I was like, okay, this is probably, if I wanted to put my house up for sale right now, how bad is that going to hurt the value of my home?
Finnerty lives across the road from Travers in Nottingham, who fear whoever buys their house will fix it up to a price point they can't afford.
Are they going to raise the rent by $500? Are they going to be better at maintenance than what we have now, or is it just going to be sort of a transfer to another hands-off type of owner? I think it's hard to say. It's not great not knowing what's going to happen. I lived here for 10 years, so it feels like home.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Ben Taboutier.
We reached out to Pendragon Properties multiple times for comment on the story, but did not hear back. The company also faces rental code violations for properties it owns in Bedford. Well, we're joined now by Elise Perry for more headlines from around the state. Hi, Elise.
Hi, Joe. Around 600,000 Hoosiers will not receive their Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program benefits for November if the government remains shut down. And that will put pressure on food banks, which already say they are stretched thin. The Hoosier Hills Food Bank says that the pantries it serves in Monroe and 5 surrounding counties have already reported a 19% increase over the same time last year.
Because our government funding and government food streams are also somewhat in flux because of the shutdown, we really have to rely on private support in order to be able to continue doing what we're doing.
Alonzo says Hoosier Hills plans to buy almost $250,000 of food for November to help provide Thanksgiving food and assist others impacted by the shutdown. The Indiana Supreme Court heard oral arguments today in a dispute over a 2019 state law that retroactively invalidated Bloomington annexation waivers. Those waivers gave property owners access to city sewer lines if they promised not to fight future annexation. The city argues the law violates the state's contract clause. The state says cities are part of the state and cannot cite constitutional protections. Indiana Governor Mike Braun has called for a special session to redraw the state's U.S. House districts before next year's elections. Braun set Monday as the start date for the special session, but Republican leaders said that was not logistically feasible. By law, they have to convene the special session within 40 days, starting Monday. Senate leaders have said they do not have the votes to pass a new map, but by calling the session, Braun is turning up the pressure.
The real pressure point here might be a reluctance to actually have initiated this, but then once the political pressure comes on and a potential primary challenge, people might fall in the line and support this change map.
Republicans already hold 7 of the state's 9 House seats and are looking to pick up at least 1 more seat. Democrats currently hold District 1 in Northwest Indiana and District 7, which encompasses Indianapolis. The Monroe County Council is shutting down efforts to build a new jail northwest of Bloomington. Wednesday night, the council unanimously voted to not approve $8 million in funding for a new jail and justice complex at North Park. Council President Jennifer Crossley called the funding request tone-deaf.
As it stands right now, we can't afford it. We just went through 8.5 weeks of budget telling people to cut this, cut that, cut this.
The property near State Road 46 and Hunter Valley Road was approved last year as the site for a 400-bed jail. A new jail is still a necessity. The county agreed to build a new jail as part of a settlement with the ACLU from a case it brought in 2008.
Not having a plan is not an option. We cannot leave our people in the current building any longer, and so this has to move quickly.
During hours of public comment, many citizens questioned the jail plan and asked officials to look at other options. The Monroe County Community School Board tabled a vote on a new collective bargaining agreement with teachers until next month. Teachers have been working without a new contract since this summer. The new agreement does not raise the base salary, but does include $1,000 stipends for performance. If ratified, the agreement will be effective for the next 2 years. Bernie Sanders was in Terre Haute last weekend to accept an award named after labor leader Eugene V. Debs. The U.S. Senator from Vermont said he owed his career to Debs, whose 1894 railroad strike led to worker protections and a new holiday, Labor Day.
What Debs talked about 100+ years ago was not only right and perceptive then, it is right and perceptive today.
Sanders was introduced by New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez at the event. She said she owed her political career to Sanders' 2016 campaign, which pushed Sanders' ideas about class and equality into the mainstream. And Purdue University researchers have postponed next week's expedition into the South Pacific to find what they hope are the remains of Amelia Earhart's plane. The delay until next year is due to concerns over a research permit and the cyclone season. Earhart disappeared during an attempt to circumnavigate the globe in 1937. Back to you, Joe.
All right. Thanks, Lee. It's been a mystery for a long time. Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. Local groups have stepped in to fill the void after Scott County canceled its needle exchange program. And a film partially shot at the Bartholomew County Public Library premiered this week in Columbus. These stories and more right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
Hello, I'm Todd Gould, Senior Producer Director at WTIU. I've personally devoted nearly 40 years of my life producing PBS arts and documentary films about important stories from Indiana, the arts, history, and people that make Hoosiers great. Despite government cutbacks, we will never stop telling Indiana stories, your stories. Please donate now to keep this station strong. Become a sustaining monthly member at WTIU.org.
WTIU is proud to amplify local voices and share the stories of what this station means to you and your family. Ken from Bloomington writes, "The newsrooms at WTIU and WFIU must be supported to provide viewers and listeners with news important to them. Support our ongoing commitment to keeping local voices strong. WTIU, here for you, here for good. Become a sustaining member today."
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. 10 years ago, Scott County made headlines for its historic HIV outbreak. The outbreak was largely brought on by injection drug use, and it was stopped thanks to Indiana's first syringe exchange. But as Aubrey Wright reports, now that program has been discontinued, locals are still doing the work.
Kelly Hans has done this before.
And so these are our harm reduction kits.
She explains these kits help drug users stay safe and prevent the spread of disease.
Yeah, and then some sterile water.
It's part of the Holding Space Recovery Project's judgment-free addiction support. Beyond the kits, Holding Space helps local residents get just about anything they need, including clothing, food, birth certificates, and insurance.
Anything that they need that is not a syringe. We are not allowed to give out syringes in Scott County anymore.
Scott County was home to Indiana's first syringe exchange program. That exchange was housed under the same roof as Holding Space in the small rural town of Austin.
They only had to use one syringe one time, and then they could dispose of it because they were able to come back and get more, or they didn't have to share it with anybody.
Experts and locals credit this syringe exchange with taming an historic HIV outbreak in 2015. In all, more than 230 people would be infected. The majority were from Austin and living in extreme poverty.
It was just way too much attention for a community, particularly Austin, whose people just want to be left alone.
The outbreak can be traced to Opana, a powerful opioid that was injected directly into the bloodstream. Drug users often reused and shared syringes, leaving them vulnerable to HIV. Dr. William Cook saw the warning signs as the opioid epidemic tore through Austin and into his practice. And at the same time, Indiana banned giving out sterile needles.
People can only make choices from options available to them. If they have a sterile syringe, they're not going to transmit that virus to other people.
As HIV cases spiked, the public pressure mounted on Indiana Governor Mike Pence. While health and addiction experts supported syringe exchanges, opponents believed they enabled drug use. 4 months after the outbreak's first HIV diagnosis, Pence finally allowed Indiana's first sterile syringe exchange program.
I will tell you that I do not support needle exchange as anti-drug policy, but this is a public health emergency.
The effect was clear and immediate.
I was seeing these horrific situations at the hospital where people, were losing limbs or dying, losing their heart valve, and that all stopped once the syringe service program happened.
The syringe exchange was also a link to Austin's most isolated residents.
Some of them probably wished, oh, I wish I could just come in and drop them off and then get some and go, but these two girls are going to talk my ear off.
Drug users were connected with medical care and routine testing. They were fed, and Hahn says they knew someone cared.
Sometimes little wins to us would be huge wins to them.
Using the influx of resources, Cook says local advocates addressed the root causes of the outbreak.
We're trying to find ways to provide people access to health care that don't have a stable house, that don't have a stable meal, that don't have transportation.
Scott County's syringe exchange lasted for 6 more years as new HIV cases steadily dropped. But when it came time to renew the exchange, the Scott County commissioners declined. Commissioner Randy Julian said in 2021 his fears for opioid overdoses outweighs his concerns for HIV.
What I'm more concerned about is the people we cannot bring back to life.
In the following years, Austin reported a handful of new HIV cases, though far below numbers in 2015. The stigma around HIV and addiction persists. So do problems like isolation and poverty. Plus, testing and tracking HIV is even harder without the syringe exchanges.
Do we have more cases of HIV, but we don't know because people aren't getting tested?
Even without the exchanges, the foundations of community-centered care stand strong. Advocates like King are still at work 10 years later.
We are saving lives. We are getting people into treatment. We are understanding if they have a setback, because that's part of recovery, and you just go right back in.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Aubrey Wright.
Indiana's syringe exchange law expires next year. If it's not extended, all syringe exchange programs are required by law to be shut down by 2027. About a year ago, parts of the Bartholomew County Public Library in Columbus were transformed into the Framingham Museum of Art for the film The Mastermind. Isabella Vesperini has more on how the movie came to be now that it's out in theaters.
Set in 1970, the film focuses on failed architect James Blaine Mooney, played by Josh O'Connor, as he attempts to steal paintings from the art museum.
I received a call, it was probably mid-summer last year, from the location director, that she is from Cincinnati, and she called and said, hey, we want to film a movie there.
Most of the movie was filmed in Cincinnati, but the directors were looking for a space that looked like it was set in the 70s.
It's one of those things that, I never know what kind of a call I'm going to get. And so, it's still really kind of surreal to me when, to know that on the other end of that line was somebody wanting to do a pretty big movie.
Last October, Hatton closed the library for 3 days to allow for filming. To stay true to the time period of the film, the crew brought older cars and replaced the sliding doors at the entrance with fake swinging doors.
They did put up some white false walls to be able to hide some of the pieces, for example, in the front entryway to hide the bookcases. And they also, to my understanding, we're going to use some green screen technology to be able to kind of move some of the walls around if they needed to.
Hatton says the crew also hung up a piece of artwork in the main entrance and created flyers specific to the art museum and exhibition the movie was focusing on.
There was a piece of art because you could see it from the front doors, and they filmed several pieces of people coming in and out of those front doors.
This isn't the first time the library has been featured on the big screen. Many scenes from the movie Columbus were shot at the library, where architecture enthusiast Casey, played by Haley Lou Richardson, worked. Hatton says he appreciates any opportunity to showcase the community.
That is just so important to our community and what brings people in, what brings visitors in, right? And we love to see that.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Isabella Vesperini.
The film debuted this week at the Yes Cinema in Columbus. And the second-ranked Indiana football team hits the road this weekend looking to go 9-0 for the second straight season. The Hoosiers will be the homecoming opponent for Maryland. The Terrapins have lost 3 straight games after opening the season 4-0, but Coach Kurt Signetti says not to discount them.
They fly around on defense. They create turnovers. They sack the quarterback. And offensively, they're protecting the quarterback, protecting the ball, making explosive plays.
Saturday's game kicks off at 3:30 p.m. and will be broadcast on CBS. That's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great and safe Halloween weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Maller Grotner Plummer Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Maller Grotner Plummer Attorneys, understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis, on the web at lawngp.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. Smithville, fiber internet, security solutions, and voice in southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Bunger and Robertson, attorneys at law since 1949, utilizing experience, knowledge, and resources to help individuals and families recover in personal injury matters. Information at lawbr.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.